So in this recording, we're going to talk about how to find out the demand functions. Now, before than that, we need to talk about what is the optimization principle. Where exactly the consumer is going to maximize his utility. So yesterday we talked about the MRS. MRS is the marginal rate of substitution. So we'll see that the consumer is going to have an equilibrium at the point where the MRS is equal to the price ratio. Price ratio is what you are getting from the slope of the budget constraint. Now, price ratio is the, you can say, objective rate of substitution that is given by the market. Market thinks that good 2 can be substituted in terms of good 1 in this ratio. While MRS is the psychic rate of substitution or subjective rate of substitution. That is what you and I think, that we would be willing to substitute good 1 for good 2 in this ratio, right? So we'll see that when these two are equal, then only you will be able to maximize the utility, right? So I've given you the idea here. So where exactly the utility maximization is going to occur? Well, you have the fixed amount of income and you'll be maximizing utility so that the MRS is equal to the price ratio. The budget constraint is you have $M with you and you can spend it on two goods, X and Y. So the budget constraint looks like P1X plus P2Y less than equal to M, right? Now, but you would want, one more thing. Now, P1X plus P2Y is, so budget line is given by, so when X is 0, Y is M by P2, and when Y is 0, X is M by P1. So you have already derived these intercepts. Now, one more thing which you also have to understand is that you know this, that one of the property of the preferences is that these preferences are monotonic. Now, when these preferences are monotonic, it means that more is better. So if more is better, then he would want to, this consumer would actually want to spend his entire income so that his utility is maximized, because by spending less, he will be consuming less amount of goods and services. So he would want to consume more amount of goods and services, and the maximum he can consume is on the boundary of the budget constraint, right? So this guy is the boundary of the budget constraint, right? This is the boundary of the budget constraint. And the slope of the budget constraint is, slope of the budget constraint is this. You have the intercept on the y-axis, which is minus M by Py, upon intercept on the x-axis, which is M upon Px. So that comes out to be minus Px by Py. This is the objective rate of substitution. Now we're interested in finding out the first order conditions. So what could be those first order conditions? So you have drawn the budget constraint and you have drawn the indifference curves, and you're trying to find out what is the highest indifference curve I can achieve given this budget constraint. So of course U0 is not highest, but U1 is highest, right? So at U1 the indifference curve is just touching the budget constraint, and at that particular point one thing is satisfied, that all amounts are spent. At U0 all amounts are not spent. At U1 all amounts are spent. So you can say probably at U0 here all amounts are spent, but that's not the point, because here the MRS is not equal to the price ratio here at this particular point. How should I tell this? This one. But at point A, let's say, MRS is also equal to the price ratio. So you would want that A is the optimal here, X star Y star. So individual's MRS is equal to the price ratio. If this condition is not fulfilled, then of course you can make some arrangement. You You can make rearrangement in the choices of X and Y by reallocating your expenditure so that you can maximize your utility. Then the question is that, does this tendency condition really holds every time? Well, at the optimal choice, not necessarily true always at the optimal choice. So if you look at these kinky preferences, the way I've drawn it here. So of course, kink is not defined at the optimal point. So at the optimal point is a kink. And at kink, your MRS is not defined, right? So IC doesn't have a tangent. So by tangency, you would mean what? By tangency, you would mean that at all points, you have a different tangent, right? You have a unique tangent there. You don't have a unique tangent at a kink. Why? Because at the kink, let's say you have a kink like this. So you have a kink like this. Now at this point, this could also be a tangent, this could also be a tangent, this could also be a tangent. So we don't know, right? Well, so you don't have a unique tangent here. So in a way, optimal consumption bundle is where IC doesn't have a tangent here. So that's not a necessary thing. Also, tangency is not satisfied where you have a corner solution. Where you have a corner solution, again, tangency is not satisfied. So how do you define a corner solution where only one of the good is consumed? Now, in this example, as you guys could see, this guy is going to maximize his utility at this particular point. So you'll be asking what is the highest indifference curve, and you find that this point A is the highest indifference curve which you have. Now, this is not the point of tangency, at least, right? At this point, you can't say that MRS is equal to the price ratio. But still, this is the point of the optimal. This is the highest indifference curve you can achieve given the utility. One thing is that. So, at optimal, will tangency always hold? No, not necessarily. Then again, you can prove that tangency condition is just the necessary condition. It is not a sufficient condition. It is not a sufficient condition at all. So as you guys could see, I've drawn these two curves. Let's say U0 and U1. Now, if you look at it, this point A, it's also a tangent point, right? It's also a tangent point. But at this point, the utility is not maximized because given this utility curve, you can go beyond it, right? You can go beyond it. So tangency is there at point A also, but that's not optimal. So tangency is just the necessary condition. It is not sufficient because you also have seen that where tangency is not holding, then also you still have an optimum. For example, in corner solution. For example, in kinky preferences. So technically speaking, in kinky preferences, tangency is not holding, right? Here, tangency is holding, but still you don't have a solution. That is not the solution. So, but the other optimal bundles, for example, B and C are the optimal bundles, right? So the question arises that, but is there a case when you can also say that tangency itself is a sufficient condition? Yes, there is a case where you can actually say that tangency itself is a sufficient condition, and that case is like this. So when you have a strictly convex preferences, where you have a strictly convex preferences, then any point which is going to satisfy the tangency is going to be the point of optimum, right? Any point which is going to satisfy the point of tangency is going to be the point of optimum. So there is nothing wrong in that as such. Okay. Then you have Lagrangian beta. Now, you need to understand few things. Of course, this is going to be the bread and butter throughout the micro course, at least, that you have the Lagrangian technique with you. So that is the constraint optimization technique. So you have the objective function and you have the constraint with you. So in the utility max case, what is the objective function with you? The objective function is the utility. You have a constraint also. So the constraint is the budget constraint. But note that Lagrange is going to be satisfied only for equality constraint problems, right? M equals to P1x plus P2y. For M greater than equal to P1x plus P2y, you do not use Lagrange, you use the other theorem, which is Kuhn-Tucker, right? So for Lagrangian technique, I mean, you would assume that M is equal to P1x plus P2y, right? First thing is that. Acha, you actually extend the Lagrangian technique to include the corner solutions also, because Lagrangian in itself is only going to give you the interior solution. Interior solution means what, beta? For example, so this is interior solution. This is interior solution. This is not coming on the corners, right? On your constraints corner, you do not have the solution. So your budget is the constraint, but this guy is the interior solution, beta. And something like this. This is a corner solution. So when you're getting the result, you're getting the optimum on the corners of your constraint. That is a corner solution problem, but Lagrangian will not give you the answers to the corner solution problem. It will give you the answers for the interior solution problem, right? So for corner solution, you may have to change the things a little bit. So instead of maybe equal to 0, you would have less than equal to 0. So you need to think about the binding, non-binding constraints. So I'm not getting into that, but the only thing is that the Lagrangian is going to give you the interior solution problems, right? For the corner solution, you have the other theorem, which is Kuhn-Tucker. So what do? You maximize ux1, x2 subject to m equals to p1x plus p2x2. You have the Lagrangian, you set up the Lagrange. So what you do is you have the objective function plus lambda and the budget constraint, right? So what do you have? This lambda is the Lagrange multiplier. Lagrange multiplier. And you always write it in terms, if you're writing plus lambda, then it is m minus p1x1 minus p2x2, right? If you're writing minus lambda, then it would be p1x plus p2x2 minus m, like that. Okay, so there are three endogenous variables out here. So one is x1, other is x2, and other is lambda. So del u by del x1, del u by del x2, del L by del x1, del L by del x2, del L by del lambda, and you have done it out here. That is del u by del x1 minus lambda p1, del u by del x2 minus lambda p2, and del u by del L by del lambda is m minus p1x minus p2x2. So these are three equations and three unknowns. So you can just actually solve all of them for x1, x2 and lambda. So there are a few interpretations which you can do. If you divide 1 by 2, what you get is del u by del x1 upon del u by del x2 equals to p1 by p2, which is MRS equals to price ratio, right? So of course these first order conditions are giving you the solution to your utility max problem. So, and if the consumer is maximizing utility, then individual should be equating the MRS equals to the price ratio 1, right? Okay, if you look at the first, the actually your first and the second first order conditions, then you will find that you had this del u by del x1 minus lambda p1 equals to 0, del u by del x2 minus lambda p2 equals to 0. So from here you can write lambda as del u by del x1 whole upon p1, and here you can write lambda as del u by del x2 whole upon p2, right? So lambda is this guy, del u by del x1 upon p1 and del u by del x2 upon p2. So how do you interpret this guy? So if you are at this utility maximizing point, then whether you are purchasing x1 or you're purchasing x2, both of them should give you the same marginal utility per dollar spent. Then you are at the point where your utility is maximum. That's what it is trying to say. So supposedly if your mu1 by p1 is greater than mu2 by p2, what happens? The thing which is going to happen is that the marginal utility of each additional dollar which you are getting from x1 is more than the marginal utility from each additional dollar which you are getting from x2. So what you should be doing? You should be actually buying more of x, right? When you buy more of x, then the diminishing marginal utility, it starts setting in. What is diminishing marginal utility? You increase the amount of x, the marginal utility which you start getting from x is going to fall. So when that happens, what happens there is that your mu1 will start falling and mu1 by p1 will be equal to mu2 by p2. This will continue till the point where these two are equal. You understand what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say is this: if mu1 by p1 is greater than mu2 by p2, then the marginal utility of each dollar which you are getting from spending on x1 is greater than the marginal utility per dollar which you're getting from x2. So you should be consuming more of x, right? More of x1. So when you consume more of x1, diminishing marginal utility will set in, and this will reduce the numerator of mu1 by p1. And this will continue till the point these two are equal. mu1 by p1 is equal to mu2 by p2. That's what he wanted. Then another interpretation is that the extra dollar should actually yield the same additional utility, no matter on which good it is spent on. It should give you the same additional utility, and the common value of this extra utility is given by the Lagrange multiplier for the consumer's budget constraint. There's nothing much in this. That is, you just need to find out, that is, what is this additional utility. So what you will be getting from the additional utility? Additional utility is you're going to get when you're going to purchase, if you're going to spend $1 more, then how much is the additional utility which you are trying to get? So the point is that whether you spent on X or you spent on Y, ultimately it should give you the same utility. Extra dollar should yield the same additional utility no matter on which good it is spent on. Then you have, you can also write your first order condition as, I think if we have written this guy like this, so lambda was equal to del u by del x1 upon p1. You can also write this as p1 equals to del u by del x1 upon lambda for all I that is bought, right? So you need to consider the case where person's marginal utility is constant over something. So we are going to marginal utility of income, sorry. So we are going to assume that this lambda is constant, right? We're going to assume that this lambda is constant. So whatever changes in the price is going to come that is going to affect the marginal utility or vice versa here. So the variations in the price that he must pay for good I is going to come actually from the marginal utility only. So because here what you have done is that P1 equals to mu1 upon lambda. You have kept the lambda constant. So whatever variations in price you are ready to pay, whether you are ready to pay high price or low price, it all then depends upon mu1 only. If your mu1 is higher, lambda is constant, you would want to pay even more, right? So that is what is being told, that it is directly proportional to the extra utility which is derived from that good. So at the margin, the price of that good reflects the individual's willingness to pay for one more unit, right? Okay. Please have a look at this. Consider the utility function u equals to x to the power alpha, y to the power beta. Alpha greater than 0, beta greater than 0, which is to be maximized subject to this. So everything is given to you on the platter. So you need to derive the demand functions for x and y and show that these demand functions are homogeneous of degree 0 in income and prices. So what do? You have the utility function with you, you have the constraint with you, and you've set up the Lagrange, which is giving you x to the power alpha, y to the power beta plus lambda, m minus p1x minus p2y. You find out three partial derivatives. One with respect to x, other with respect to y, and other with respect to lambda, as we have just shown here. And you divide 1 by 2. You divide equation 1 by 2, and what you will be getting is this, guys. So most of you can do this. So once you get this y, you'll be substituting this back into the third equation, which is your constraint. And you'll be getting the value for y star, which is beta upon alpha plus beta m by p2. Similarly, the moment you have y star with you, you can just find out the value for x star, which is going to be alpha upon alpha plus beta m by p1. Okay, from here you've got the value for x star, right, which is alpha upon alpha plus beta m by p1. Okay, and supposedly if this was the case, beta, so your alpha beta are both 1 1. So x star would be alpha upon alpha plus beta, means 1 upon 2 m by p1. Y star is beta upon alpha plus beta, 1 upon 2 m by p2. Something like this, right? So you need to find out whether this is homogeneous of degree 0 or not. Well, it is. How do you find out whether some function is homogeneous? You find out whether some function is homogeneous by saying that if you, this function, this demand function which you have just got, this is the function of income and prices, right? So if you divide, if you increase both income and prices by lambda, right? If you increase both income and prices by lambda, and if this lambda is completely factored out, then this becomes the homogeneous function. So for example, if you have the function fxy and you increase both x and y with lambda, and this lambda is completely factored out, then this becomes the homogeneous function. And this k is the degree of homogeneity. This k is the degree of homogeneity. So you have this guy with you. You increase both. So it is defined in terms of m and p. You increase both m and p by lambda. So what you get is lambda m upon lambda. When this lambda is completely factored out. They completely divide. So it is what? Just 1. So you can write this as lambda to the power 0. So it is homogeneous of degree 0 in income and prices. And similarly for y star. Similarly for y star, it is lambda to the power 0 y star and p, right? And then what is the proportion of income which is spent on x? That is the what is the expenditure which you are making on X? X into P1. What is the total income? M. Right? So X star you have already found out, beta, which is what alpha upon alpha plus beta into M by P1. And you've got alpha upon alpha plus beta. So supposedly, if alpha plus beta is equal to 1, so you just have alpha as alpha, then would be the proportion of income which is spent on X. So if you have the question like U equals to X to the power alpha, Y to the power beta, and if supposedly if alpha plus beta is equal to 1, then alpha, just by looking at alpha, you can say that this is the proportion of income which is spent on X. Otherwise also, you just have the proportion as alpha upon alpha plus beta. Similarly, Y star, what is the expenditure which you are making on Y? P2 into Y upon M. Upon M is the total income. So what is the share of expenditure? P2 into Y upon M. I said P2 upon M into beta upon alpha plus beta. M upon P2, and you've got beta upon alpha plus beta as this. And if alpha plus beta is 1, this is just beta. So it could be applied to any kind of thing. Even if it is 2 plus 2 or something. 2 x to the power 2, y to the power 3. Then it would be what? 2 upon 2 plus 3, 2 upon 5. And that would be 3 upon 2 plus 3, 3 upon 5. Right? So you know that 40%, 60% is the ratio. Let us look at this question. So consider you have the utility function u equals to root of q1, q2. Right? And P1 is equal to 40, P2 is equal to 16. And what is the monthly income? Guys, you know this, right? So u equals to q1 to the power half, q2 to the power half. So q1 star would be alpha upon alpha plus beta into m upon p1. That is going to be what? 1 upon 2 m upon p1, and I have just solved that. So it is m by 2 p1. Similarly, q2 star is going to be beta upon alpha plus beta into m upon p2. You just solve this, beta. Huh? You guys have just solved this. So you've got this guy, 50 and 125. But I mean, in the paper, just don't write this. You have to write the proper Lagrange, and then only you'll have to solve this. Then this question came. So an individual has the utility function u equals to xy, and her budget constraint is this guy, 10x plus 10y equals to 1000. So find the maximum utility that they can attain. Of course, you just have to write the utility. You just have to find out the maximum or the optimal bundles. So how will you find that out? You'll find that out using the Lagrange. And once you've found out the optimal bundles, you just have to substitute it back into the utility so that you can get the maximum utility that they can obtain. So once you have done that, so your budget constraint is 10x plus 10y equals to 1000. That means x plus y equals to 100. And you have just written the Lagrange, right? You've just written the Lagrange, and you've got this guy, del L by del x, del L by del y, del L by del lambda. And you divide 1 by 2, you get y equals to x, 100 equals to 2x, x and y both equal to 50. And you substitute it back into the utility function. What you get is 50 into 50 is 2500. Right? Okay. Let us look at the another preference, for example, perfect complements here, which is u equals to min of x1, x2. So when you have, and whenever you have a kink, let's make it a point that you will always draw the kink line first. So you have, I'm so sorry. So you have u equals to min of x1, x2. So I'll draw the kink line first. So how do you draw that? So you have x1 equals to x2 out here. So this is the kink line, right? So kink is defined at x1 equals to x2. Achha, what about this point, beta? This point. If you look at it carefully, then it means that the amount of x1 which you have is this, and amount of x2 which you have is this, right? So it is x less than y. So y is more and x is less, or you can say x1 less than x2. So in this entire region, x1 is less than x2. What about this point? x1 is this much and x2 is this much. So x1 is more and x2 is less. So x1 greater than x2, right? Okay. So what do you have? Now when you have x1 and x2, so there are three possibilities which might arise. Either x1 could be less than x2, or x1 could be greater than x2, or x1 could be equal to x2. So when you have min of x1, x2 and x1 is less than x2, so what will you do? U of min of x1, x2 and x1 is less than x2. So u is equal to x1, right? So you can assume some value of u, for example 4, let's say. So 4 equals to x1. This is this region beta, x1 less than x2 region. This is going to be the point. Okay, x1 greater than x2, min of x1, x2. x1 greater than x2, x2 is less, so you have u equals to x2 out here. This point is 4 equals to x2, something like this, and x1 is equal to x2 is just a point. So this is the way you derive, you draw the indifference curve for this. And you can also draw it using this 4 equals to, let's say, min of x1, x2. So means, I mean, you can pick up any value of x1 and x2 for which, you can pick up any value in order to draw the indifference curve, any arbitrary value. For example, 4, let's say. So min of 4, 5 is going to give you 4. Min of 5, 4 is going to give you 4. Min of 4, 4 is going to give you 4. So there's nothing satisfying about this 4. I mean, you can pick up any value whatsoever. So I've just given you 4 just to show that yes, we want to draw the indifference curve. Now the question is that can you use Lagrange here? You cannot use Lagrange here because Lagrange could be used only for the interior, only for the equality constraints, right? And for the differentiable functions, and when there is an interior solution. So this function is not differentiable. This function is not differentiable. Why? Because at this point, at the point of kink, even this could be a tangent, this could be a tangent, this could be a tangent. So there are infinite tangents which you can draw. So this is not a differentiable function here. You cannot use Lagrange, but of course you can use logic. So if this is my budget constraint like this, I'll ask myself, what is the highest indifference curve I can have? Is this the highest indifference curve? Or is this the highest indifference curve? Of course, this one is the highest indifference curve. So you are spending your entire income. First of all, you are on the budget constraint. You means budget constraint is getting satisfied, and also you are at this point where kink is satisfied. So this point has two characteristics. One, that it is satisfying the budget constraint, and secondly, it is also sort of satisfying this kink point also, x1 equals to x2. So you just have to substitute x1 equals to x2 back into the function, back into the budget constraint. So budget constraint is what? P1 x1 plus P2 x2 equals to m. So in place of x2, we have just substituted x1, and we have got x1 star is m by P1 plus P2, and x2 star is m by P1 plus P2. So both of them are equal. x1, x2 star are both equal to m upon P1 plus P2. So that's there. There was a question which came in IES 2011 paper like this. They said this, what is a corner solution? So corner solution would be where there is only one consumption, or consumption of only one good. So for example, x1 and x2 is there, but you'll be consuming only one good, either x1 or x2. So we have told this in the beginning itself, where there's an exception to the tangency rules. So you'll define what is the corner solution. In case of perfect complementary goods, where do you get the corner solution? You do not get the corner solution. You're consuming both of the goods, x and y there, right? You're consuming both of the goods there. Let's do this question also. Suppose U equals to min of alpha x1, beta x2, P1, P2 are the unit prices, M is the income. Derive the demand functions for x1 and x2. Again, just the kink. Kink is defined at here according to this function at alpha x1 equals to beta x2. You will be getting the value for x1 and just substitute that x1 back into x2 in the budget constraint. The same thing which you have done for min of x1, x2. I'm just giving you one extra question, that's it. And you get this value. So you get the value for x2 star as alpha m upon beta p1 plus alpha p2 and x1 star as beta m upon beta p1 plus alpha p2. Nothing much in this. Okay. Supposedly you have the max function now. U equals to max of x1, x2 and p1, p2 are the unit prices. M is the income of the consumer and derive x1 star, x2 star. So first of all, let us just draw the indifference curve. So you have U equals to max of x1, x2. So you have what? You'll draw the kink line first. This is a kink, beta. Huh? So it is x1, this is x2. And you will draw the kink line first. Kink is defined at x1 equals to x2. Right, beta? And this guy is what? x1 less than x2 region. I've just told you. And this guy is what? x1 greater than x2 region. I've just told you. Okay? So there are three possibilities. Either x1 could be less than x2. And when max of x1, x2 is there, we'll pick up the highest one. So U would be equal to x2. Okay? Pick up some utility number in order to draw an indifference curve 4 equals to x2. So x1 less than x2 in this region, you have U equals to x2. So 4 equals to x2. Somewhat like this. X1 greater than x2. So from max of x1, x2, what will you pick up? x1. So it is U equals to x1. And x1 equals to x2 is just a point here. So this becomes your indifference curve. Or you can also draw it using a number. So 4 equals to max of x1, x2. So max of 4, 0 is 4. Max of 0, 4 is 4. Max of 4, 4 is 4. You've drawn the indifference curve, beta. So this is the way you draw the indifference curve. Okay. Now the other thing is, supposedly if the budget line is this guy. Okay, how should I tell this? Supposedly, if budget line was, okay, I'll use a different thing so that you understand it better. Budget line is this. Budget line is this. So this was, let's say, 8 here, 4 upon 8. So if budget line is this, I will be asking myself the same question, what is the highest indifference curve I can draw? Just think about it. Is this the highest indifference curve? You can go still further. This is not the highest indifference curve. Given the budget, you can go still further. I'll extend this line also. So where are you consuming? Consuming here. Given this green budget, you're just asking what is the highest indifference curve you can draw. So this one is the highest indifference curve, beta. This one is the highest indifference curve. And you will be consuming where? You're consuming here. Corner solution. So it means what? This is what case? when slope of the indifference curve is less than 1 out here, let's say. So if P1 is less than P2, what are you doing? You're consuming all of X1. That's what has been the case out here. You with me? So if I would have drawn, let's say, like this, then the slope of the budget line would have been 1. When I have drawn it for a green line, the slope of the budget line is less than 1. Or if I would have drawn it like this, let's say some other number, some other, this one. Then the slope of the budget line is 2. You with me? So you do what? You have, we have done the case when slope is less than 1, right? We have done the case when slope is less than 1. What are you doing? You're consuming here. And when you're consuming here, you mean what? P1x plus P2y, or P1x1 plus P20 is equal to m. So x1 is m by P1, or x2 is 0. It's a corner solution. Case 2 beta. Case 2 is this. Okay, I'll draw this again. X1 equals to x2. And the way you've drawn the indifference curve was this. And your P, if you take up the intercepts, and one more thing. In all case of concave preferences, the best way is you join the intercepts of the indifference curve. Here the intercept is coming out to be what, 4, 4. So you join them, and the slope of this line segment is decisive. So what is the slope of this line segment is 1. So everything is going to be compared with 1. So we have done one case where P1 by P2 is less than 1. We're doing the another case where P1 by P2 is greater than 1. So greater than 1 could have been this beta. Somewhat like this. Say like this. This is greater than 1. Eight upon 4. And you'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve you can draw? Is this the highest indifference curve given this pink dotted budget line? No. This one is the highest indifference curve, right? This one is the highest indifference curve, and you're consuming here only. You're consuming only x2. Note that I'm keeping track of the kings, right? Your kings are predefined. Kings can only be at this line, which is the 45-degree line here, because it is x1 comma x2, right? So it is like this. So you'll be consuming where? Only x2. So it is what? P1 x1 plus P2 x2 equals to m. You're not going to consume x1. You're going to consume only x2. Again, a corner solution. Okay, then you have case 3. So you've drawn this 4, 4. You've drawn the budget line joining this, and the slope is 1. You'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Is this the highest indifference curve? Don't you think given this budget line you can go on a higher indifference curve? Of course you can. Is this the highest indifference curve? No, this one is the highest indifference curve. So you consume either here or here. So if you're consuming here, you're consuming all of x1. And if you're consuming here, it means you're consuming all of x2. So when you're consuming all of x, so let me write x2 out here. So x1 star is m by p1 comma 0. x1 star is m by p1 and x2 star is 0. Or it could be 0 comma m by p2. So it is m by p1 comma 0. Or zero comma m by p2, right? Okay. Then you have the another preference, which is perfect substitutes. Well, what about perfect substitutes? For example, x plus y. For example, x plus y. So u equals to x plus y, and you just want to draw this indifference curve. Let's say you just draw for 4 equals to x plus y, and just draw them beta. X is 0, y is 4, y is 0, x is 4, x is 2, y is 2, and so on. So this becomes your indifference curve, just this. So there is a possibility of the corner solution here. So you cannot use Lagrange just blindly here. So you have to use some other thing. So what you can probably do is, so I'm not going into the technical details why the Lagrange couldn't be used. Of course, just know this, that since you have the corner solution here, there is a possibility of corner solutions, so you cannot use Lagrange, right? Okay, even in here, the first question you have to ask, I mean, can you use Lagrange? Of course you cannot use Lagrange because it's not a differentiable function. And moreover, these are not convex indifference curves, right? So Lagrange will be giving you the better solution if you have the convex indifference curve, because you are maximizing utility. So, because, and moreover, Lagrange is only going to give you the solution for the interior. For Kuhn-Tucker, of course, you can have the corner solutions as well. Okay, so the first case is, I'll rub this up, or should I? Because I would want to do this again with you guys so that you understand it better. So you have here x here, your y here, and this is one line. Let's say it is 4 comma 4. The first case is, so the indifference curve, they had the slope of 1, right? 4 upon 4. So P1 by P2 has to be compared with what? 1 only. It could be less than 1, it could be more than 1, it could be equal to 1. When it is less than 1, say it is less than 1, so it is like this. So 4 upon 8, let's say. 4 upon 8 is half. You ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Is this the highest indifference curve given this red budget line? No. Is this the highest indifference curve? No. This one is the highest indifference curve. Note that it should be parallel. So you're consuming only x out here. And when you're consuming all of x, all of x would mean m by p1. All of x would mean m by p1, and y star is 0, right? Then you like this. For example, this is the budget constraint. 4 upon 2, right? That is true, that's the budget constraint. You'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Is this the highest indifference curve, beta? No, you can go further. Is this the highest one? No, you can go further. This one is the highest one. So this one is what? All of y. You've just done that. So P1 into 0 plus P2 into y equals to m. Y star is m by P2 and x star is 0. Well, if you have like this. If the budget constraint slope and the indifference curve slope is same, so these are the parallel indifference curves, so parallel things. You'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Well, is this the highest one? No. Is this the highest one? No. This one is the highest one. So this one is the highest one. You can consume anywhere from this point to this point. Anywhere, right, on the budget line. Including corner points, right? So when you're consuming here, beta, it is all of x. When you are consuming here, it is all of y, so it has to be in between them. So when you are here, x is 0 and y is all of them. So x star could be 0 of x here to all of x, right? So x star is 0 to m by P1. And what is y star? Here it is 0 of y to all of y. But generally, we will write, when two statements are in range, we'll write one other statement from the budget constraints. So instead of writing y equals to 0 to m by P2, we will rather write it this way. It's rather better. So we'll write the budget. And y star would be m by P2 minus P1 by P2 x star, right? So it is like this. So you have y star is m by P2 minus P1 by P2 x star. So it's so whatever x star you have taken out here. So for example, if x star is 0, then this statement is telling you that you have all the money with you to consume all of y. If x star is m by P1, then this is telling you you do not have any money to buy y. Right? This will be 0 beta. And if it would be some number, right, just put it in the constraint here to get the answer. Right? That's there. Okay, there was a question which came in IES 2020 paper. Suppose the utility function of the consumer takes one of the following form: 50x plus 20y, 20x plus 50y, 80x plus 40y. The budget of the consumer is 10,000. The prices of good X and good Y are rupees 50 and rupees 20 per unit respectively. Determine the possibility of determination of equilibrium basket in each case. Right? You've done this question just right now. So P1 by P2 is what? What is P1 by P2? 50 upon 20, which is 2.5. You've just done that. First case, beta. U equals to 50x plus 20y. U equals to 50x plus 20y. Okay. What is MRS? 50 upon 20, del u by del x upon del u by del y, which is 50 upon 20, which is going to be 2.5. Right? So you have x, you have y. And supposedly, if this is 2.5, supposedly, this is the slope of the indifference curve, this is 2.5. Okay, I'll also draw this like this. Okay, this is 5, this is 2, let's say. So the slope of the indifference curve is 5 upon 2, 2.5, like this. Right, beta? Or you can, you know what, I mean, okay, let's start with basics. So you have, say, u equals to 100. So you have 100 equals to 50x plus 20y. So when x is 0, y is 5. When y is 0, x is 2. This is the slope of the indifference curve, 2.5. And the slope of the budget line is also 2.5. Right? Slope of the budget line is also 2.5. So I've just drawn the parallel line because the slope of the indifference curve and slope of the line are slope of the budget line are equal. Well, you'll ask yourself, given this red budget line, what is the highest indifference curve I can draw? Is this the highest one? No. Is this the highest one? No. This one is the highest one. It will coincide completely with the red indifference curve. It will coincide completely with the red budget line. Right, beta? So it means what? That you can consume anywhere on this budget line, and you have just shown that, right? In the third case, that you can consume anywhere on this budget line. Anywhere. So it is 0 to m by p1 and y star would be m by p2 minus p1 by p2 x star. Okay. Then the question is u equals to 20x plus 50y. Okay. So say u equals to 100. So you have 100 equals to 20x plus 50y. X is 0, 100 equals to 55, y is 2. Y is 0, 100 equals to 20x, x is 5. Right, beta? And if I want to draw the indifference, the budget line is a slope of 2.5, 5 upon 2. Now given this red budget line, I'll be just asking myself, what is the highest indifference curve I can draw? Is this the highest? No. Is this the highest? No. This one is the highest. Right? All of y. All of y. So you're consuming what? All of y would mean y star is equal to m by p2. So m by p2 is what? 10,000 upon 20, 500. So x star y star is 0, 500. Third case, beta. Say u bar equals to 100. Or it is better to take up some other which is easily divisible. So let's say u bar equals to 80. So 80 equals to 80x plus 40y. So you have x, you have y. So when x is 0, 80 equals to 40y, y is 2. When y is 0, 80 equals to 80x, x is 1. Right? And what is the slope of the budget line? Slope of the budget line, beta? Slope of the budget line is going to be, you had 5 here, let's say, and you have 2 out here. Something like this. 2.5. You'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Is this the highest one? No. Is this the highest one? No. You can go still further. This is the highest one. All of y, m by p2. Right, beta? M by p2. M is what? 10,000. P2 is what? 20. And 20, no? It's 500. Right? There was a question which came in IES 2019 paper. So in a two commodity world, the MRS is everywhere equal to 2. The price of the two goods are equal, draw a diagram. Now when you think about it, when MRS is same, so that is the case, which case? Perfect substitutes. That is the perfect substitutes case, because MRS is constant everywhere. So when MRS is constant everywhere and prices of the two goods are equal. So if prices of the two goods are equal, that means P1 equals to P2. That means P1 by P2 equals to 1. MRS is 2 and this guy is P1 by P2 is equal to 1. Okay, let's draw that. Think about it. You have so if the question like this, u equals to 2x plus y, its MRS is 2 and you're given that P1 by P2 is equal to 1. So 4 equals to 2x plus y. So when x is 0, y is 4. When y is 0, x is 2. This is 2. And what is the slope of the budget constraint? 4 upon 4, 1. Right. So given this red budget line, you'll ask yourself, what is the highest indifference curve? Is this the highest? No. Is this the highest? No. This one is the highest. You're consuming all of x. You're consuming all of x. So it means what? M equals to P1x plus P2y P1x plus P2 into 0, x star equals to M by P1, y star is 0. Right? Then you have this question. This is a quasi-linear function. U equals to log of x1 plus x2. It's a quasi-linear function. So quasi-linear functions are used for what kind of the curves? What kind of the goods? Necessities. Quasi means what? Quasi means like linear. So then it's not linear but not completely non-linear. So it is linear because of x2, non-linear because of x1 out here. So again, are these convex indifference curves? So how do we know whether these are convex indifference curves? Because only if they are convex indifference curves, then only we can use this guy, your Lagrange. So how do you know? We'll find out the MRS. What is the MRS? Del u by del x1 whole upon del u by del x2. What is del u by del x1? 1 upon x1 upon del u by del x2 is 1. So it is 1 upon x1. Okay. Now the idea is you will say that MRS is diminishing if, okay, when do you say MRS is diminishing? x1 out here, x2 out here. Function like this. So as x1 is increasing and x2 is falling and MRS is falling. Or in some cases, if x1 is increasing, x2 is constant, there also MRS is diminishing. Or in some cases, x1 is constant and x2 is falling, then also MRS is diminishing. So MRS is diminishing when x1 is increasing, x2 falling, and your MRS is falling. Then you say it is diminishing MRS. Or x1 increasing, x2 constant, then also you will say MRS is diminishing. Or x1 constant, x2 falling, then also you will say MRS is diminishing. Right. Now here in this case, when x1 is x1 is increasing, and then also, although you don't know what x2 is constant, right? x1 is increasing, MRS is diminishing. So you can use Lagrange out here because it is diminishing MRS. You can use Lagrange out here. So you have the Lagrange, which is log of x1 plus x2 plus lambda m minus p1 x1 minus p2 x2. So just use three partial derivatives, one with respect to x1, other with respect to x2, other with respect to lambda. So del L by del x1 upon del L by del x2 upon del L by, del L by del x1, del L by del x2, del L by del lambda. You've already found that out. And you get the value for x1 star, which is p2 by p1. And you substitute this x1 star back into the third expression, and you get this m, right? You get this third expression. So m equals to p1 x1 plus p2 x2. Well, x1 is what? p2 by p1. x2 is what? You just have to find it out. So x2 star comes out to be m minus p2 whole upon p1. Whole upon p2, right? Well, if m is strictly greater than p2, then only this x2 star is going to be positive. Then only this x2 star is going to be strictly positive. Then x1 star would be p2 by p1. And x2 star would be m minus p2 by p2. The solutions which you have just got. Well, if m is less than p2, then what happens? You cannot consume x2. x2 is going to be negative. That is not allowed. You can have 0 of x1, x2. You cannot have negative of x2. That doesn't make sense. So in that case, x2 star is going to be 0. And you will be spending your entire income on x1. So entire income on x1 would mean what? p1 x1 plus p2 x2 equals to m. p1 x1 plus p2 into 0 equals to m. And x1 would be equal to m upon p1. Right, Buddha? And even if m is equal to p2, then also this is true. x2 star is 0 and m is going to be this, right? So there's a threshold income out here. So these are quasi-linear preferences. So what you've seen the kind of the questions which they have asked in this topic and from the demand functions in Indian economic services. So they have asked more or less all kinds of preferences generally. I think the reference for this could be Varian chapter 5 and 4 and 5, and or Nicholson chapter 3 and 4 maybe, right? That's it. So you might have to look at from H.L. Ahuja where exactly he has discussed this. Okay, thank you very much.